Hey everybody, welcome to Windows to Heaven Art Studio. I'm your host Stephen Cooley, and in this episode I'm going to paint a close-up of a waterfall using oil paint. And the canvas size that I'm going to be working with today is an 18 by 24 inch canvas. So let's jump into it and see what we can learn. First off, I am beginning a sketch. And I'm just taking more of a detailed filbert brush is what I think that is, and I am taking just a little bit of oil paint and sketching out generally what I want the painting to look like. So I'm choosing where the rocks are going to go, and most importantly where the waterfall is going to be. And you can see my laptop over there is on. That's because I am looking at a reference photo as well. And when you're doing sketches like this, it's pretty basic. I don't usually follow them 100% because the painting changes so much, but it just really helps you visualize and creates a general guide for where things are going to be. And you notice I left a little pocket up there at the top of the painting. That's because that area is going to be designated for kind of like a background sky type area. And now I am starting to put in the first layer of color. You can see I'm choosing greens, a little bit of brown, maybe some red in there. And I'm just putting in some paints that are going to be the undertone paints. They're going to set the tone for the rest of the painting. Now I'm putting in a little bit of sky, basically with like a green kind of gray color up there in that area I was just telling you about. It's probably actually not sky, it's just farther away, blurry background. You can see I added a little bit of light blue to that area, and oils mix so well, so it didn't take long, it wasn't hard at all. Now I'm adding in darker tones in those areas. The light source for this painting is not on the canvas itself. It's kind of coming in from the top right hand side and shining into the painting. So I don't have to think about putting in a particular light source onto the painting itself. All I have to do is highlight on the painting. And you can see that I am making the paint go as far as I can, keeping it thin for this step. That's just because it's easier to start painting detail later on when there's less paint on the canvas. So I'm keeping it as thin as I can, and you can see that I am building the rocks where the water is going to go over, where the waterfall is going to tumble down. And it's really important to note, too, this is something that I learned on this painting as I went, that it is, as a general rule for waterfalls, you want the water to be brighter and lighter than the rocks around it to help it stand out. So you can see throughout the painting that I'm just making the rocks there where the waterfall is going over darker and darker and darker as I go. You can see I added more dark up there, and I think I even added more as I went. But yeah, that's something to note, that the water should always be brighter and lighter than the rocks around it. You can see I have a fan brush there, and I'm taking kind of a dark blue color, kind of like a gray actually as well, and I'm just creating the waterfall's base color that I can highlight over the top of with more white and lighter blues later on. And you can see that I am just imagining where the water will, run over the rock. It's really fun to do this part because you can really just keep tweaking it and thinking, oh, I think some water would be going over there as well. And it's really fun. You can see here, I believe, I use the fan brush for painting in the rest of the canvas. So now our canvas is completely covered, and putting in that pond there with the fan brush to finish that up. And you can see I put in a little bit of shadow in the areas where the water would be shadowed. And at this point you can start to see a lot of depth. That will increase the more we highlight and add shadows into the painting. But like I did this sketch at the beginning of the painting, that really helps you when you do that to create and maintain depth throughout the painting. Because if you do it in the sketch and you're like, ooh, that doesn't look good, you can just quickly fix it and work with it until you get something that you see depth in right away, so that when you start painting it, it will maintain that depth. So yeah, it really helps to sketch out your painting beforehand. And now at this point, I am starting to simply put in shadows where I want to define boulders a little better. And this is the point in the painting where I do a lot of stepping back and imagining certain things just to see how they might look with what I have now. And I do a lot of planning and considering at this point, exploring all the possibilities of what I could do. I make a lot of tweaks at this point. I try things out, see if they work. And when I do that, I step back a few feet from the painting and just look at it a lot when I'm doing that. And I find that really helps me with that process. You can see I added a few rocks in the waterfall with a darker paint. And I'm just kind of working with the course of the waterfall. Working with moving water is really fun because there's just something about it that is fun to look at and watch. So I like to try to capitalize on the movement of water as much as I can, especially when it's the subject of your painting. And working with oils is really easy to do that because they don't dry very quick, so you can just keep moving it around and seeing what looks good. At that point, I'm adding some blurry background foliage up there. And because of where the light is coming into the painting, I'm making the green a little bit lighter, and I can highlight over the top of it even a little bit later. Adding in some more shadows up there as well. You can see I put in quite a bit of shadow over there. Now that helps the water achieve a really nice mirror effect. Now I am taking a detailed brush and putting water highlights over the top of my waterfall. And you accomplish that pretty easily by just taking a little bit of a lighter waterfall color and putting it on top of what you have until you get to the last highlights, which is with a white. And you can see I used a fan brush for some of it as well. Now I am going through with a detail brush and just adding in some ripples where the waterfall is hitting the pond. And just like I said earlier, you notice how adding highlights and shadowing the painting continually just keeps on creating a sense of depth in the painting. I'm starting to box in the painting a little bit more by putting darker colors like dark browns and dark greens along the outer edges of the canvas. The more you do that, the more you create a contrast where you see that maybe this is a forest waterfall where the sun is coming through the leaves and just hitting the middle of the painting here to highlight it, leaving the outside edges of the canvas looking dark. And I wanted to go with that, so you can see how I definitely took that and ran with it. I darkened it up quite a bit. And now you notice I am taking another detailed brush and putting in thicker, more blobby paint strokes with a very light green over the top of those dark areas to create branches kind of coming in over the water where the sunlight is hitting them. And that contrast is really important in a painting like this because it helps draw the viewer's eye into the painting. You can see that I took a dark paint and I started to paint in a limb there, like a tree limb. But then I realized I don't like that at all because I want to create the branch hanging in from a bigger tree. I don't want to, it just didn't look right to have a little tree coming out of the rocks there. So I quickly just got rid of that and put in some more foliage coming in from the left. And now I'm adding moss onto the rocks, and that was super easy. I just took the same green and plopped it onto the rocks. Now I'm starting to take that light green and create little pockets of sunlight over on the right side of the waterfall. And there we have another branch coming out into the open where the sunlight is hitting it. And on the very outer leaves where the most sunlight is hitting, I chose a yellow that was tinged with just a little bit of white in the paint, just to make that yellow even brighter. And that just creates a sense of that maximum sunlight hitting it. And now I'm highlighting the waterfall some more with some white. That's titanium white. You can see I highlighted the rocks as well because obviously they're wet, and that helps them stand out more. Highlighting the moss on that rock just because the sunlight is hitting it. And I love the contrast of that green, that really light green. Especially when you have a darker subject matter. The subject matter is kind of a forest floor in this case, with the stream coming through. And when you create those pockets of light, it really stands out and catches the eye. And now I am taking some green and I'm putting in leaves onto the pool. And the farther back I'm working in the painting, I'm having the leaves smaller, but you can see the closer that I get in the foreground, the leaves become bigger. That just plays with the sense of depth. And also, I'm keeping the leaves darker towards the edges of the water and brighter in the middle where the sunlight is hitting them. And after that step, that's pretty much all I wanted to do with this one. It's just highlighting a few more splashes of water there, and it's basically done. Excellent. Okay, we're finished with the painting. And I think the most important thing to take away from this video is create contrast. You'll notice in this painting that I left certain areas dark. That's because I wanted to put something bright over the top of it, like those bright green leaves near the waterfall that kind of came in from outside of the painting. What that does when you create contrast is it helps draw the viewer's eye into the focal point, which in this case is the waterfall, and it really adds interest. Click on the link in the About section of this channel and it will take you directly to my website, windowstoheavenart.etsy.com, where you can find a lot of my artwork for sale in canvas prints, and watch for originals because I want to list some of my originals to sell as well. Here's an example of an original. This one is a 16 by 20 inch canvas. And here is an example of a canvas print. This is also a 16 by 20 inch canvas print. And I order them through Easy Canvas Prints. Here's an example of their work. They print out my paintings on these beautiful canvases. They're really high quality. You can see there that they're made to hang on the wall or be put in a frame. And they're really high quality, nice looking canvases. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more painting videos later on. I like to do one every week or so. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Great in